Weather warnings remain in place across much of northern Britain as the clean-up from Storm Arwen continues.
Now, at least 3 people have been killed after Storm Arwen brought winds of up to 100 miles per hour to some parts of the UK. Trees were blown over, buildings destroyed and thousands left without power in Scotland, the North and the Midlands. Becky Cottrell reports.
The force of Arwen on full display. Ferocious winds battering the lighthouse at Roker Beach in Sunderland. The pier completely overwhelmed by the waves. And this was after the wind warning had been downgraded. At the height of the storm, just up the road, Arwen struck. The side of a house torn off by the power of the storm as the city slept. An example of Arwen's indiscriminate destruction next to neighbours who were spared. Up the coast, this is the grounds of Arwen Town Football Club in Northumberland. The highest wind speed was recorded near here, 98 miles per hour.
The entire roof had completely gone from the building. The roof's actually on our synthetic football pitch, our new football pitch at the moment. And part of the gable end of the walls also come down. But the entire building is kind of open to the elements now, so it's pretty much completely destroyed.
Up to 1,000 people play here every week. This is a big blow to the community, and for the club, there isn't a quick fix. And across the country, stories of tragedy. Tributes have been paid to Francis Largan, a head teacher who was killed when a tree hit his car in County Antrim. In a statement, his school's vice principal said, "It is with great pain and sadness that I have to inform you of the untimely death of our much-loved principal, Mr. Largan. May his gentle soul rest in peace." And 2 other men died in similar circumstances in Aberdeenshire and Cumbria, victims of Arwen's anger. Up and down the UK, trains were cancelled, drivers were stranded in the snow, and more than 200,000 homes lost electricity. Others are now uninhabitable. This lorry, blown onto its side near Hartlepool, shows the power of the wind overnight. And even as the storm began to pass, it left dramatic scenes in its wake. The wind is driving the waves up really high and it's battering the pier and the lighthouse. And there's this stuff everywhere. It's called spume and it's the froth off the waves. And it's literally being sprayed out of the sea. Although the storm has started to ease, the disruption is expected to continue over the weekend, and for many, the work to repair the damage is just beginning. Becky Cottrell, Sky News, Sunderland.
Now, several weather warnings remain in place across much of Scotland and northern England this morning as the effects of Storm Arwen continue to disrupt transport networks and power supplies.
3 people are now known to have died after gale-force winds brought down trees and damaged buildings, with heavy snowfall leaving hundreds of drivers stranded. Greg Mackenzie has more.
A winter wonderland for many across large parts of northern Britain. But for others, a day of disruption, with road and rail travel affected. Power lines brought down in Swaledale in the Yorkshire Dales, leaving many without electricity. The situation made worse in some places by heavy snow.
A lot of the people are reasonably well prepared because they live here and it's sort of a thing that happens occasionally during the winter. But we do have people like our neighbour Patricia who they do struggle quite a lot because they just don't have heating, they don't have the sort of flexibility to cope.
Across the UK, falling trees have killed 3 people. 1 man in Aberdeenshire, another in Cumbria and a 3rd in Antrim. Francis Largan died when gale-force winds brought a large branch down onto his car. He was travelling with his wife and 2 of his children at the time. Scotland and the northeast of England felt Storm Arwen's full force, battered by strong winds of nearly 100 miles per hour.
I had like 2 kids in here as well and they were like freaking out and stuff like that as well, so they were like, is it a thunderstorm? But I think it was just the roof like coming apart and it sounded like a bit like a thunderstorm.
ScotRail says several of its routes will be suspended until the end of today. Network Rail Scotland saying the situation was one of the most challenging in recent memory.
We have no metro services operating system-wide.
In Newcastle upon Tyne, the metro network was brought to a standstill when it should have been heaving with Christmas shoppers.
This is certainly one of the worst winter storms we've seen in the entire history of the metro, which goes back 41 years. Certainly in terms of the scale and the speed of the damage that was caused by the gale force winds, it has been horrendous for us. It's wiped out the entire system.
LNER says its customers should not travel north of York today because they're unable to run trains between Newcastle and Edinburgh. And at Gwyric Castle in North Wales, all the celebrities are out and back in COVID isolation, while they wait for technical problems to be repaired, as Storm Arwen knocked out the show's production base, forcing cancellation of this weekend's planned episodes. As for today, a yellow warning for ice will remain in place until 11 o'clock this morning. It's been issued for northern and eastern Scotland, along with much of the north of England. The UK Health Security Agency has issued a cold weather alert until Monday afternoon and is advising people to check in on older neighbours or relatives, especially those who live alone. Greg Mackenzie, BBC News.